Good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua. I'm going to be your presenter today. We're here to preview, or not quite so much a preview now. 21 is officially released now, but we're here to look at the new dashboard feature in Church Windows Accounting today. Before we get started on our topic, it is promptly noon. We're going to go ahead and get started here. But before we do, a few technical things that we do want to discuss before we get going on our topic. We're going to be together for the next 20 minutes today, maybe less, depending on how long it goes, but I'm going to definitely finish up whatever I'm discussing at 20 minutes after, just out of respect for your time. Again, thank you very much in advance for attending. If you have questions, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. You can click the little red arrow on the sidebar of the control panel there to get it out of your way. This is particularly effective if you've got or particularly important if you have a single monitor. If you've got a dual monitor set up, of course, just drag that control panel out to your second desktop just to get it out of the way. Please keep the questions topical, meaning it's on our topic at hand here about the dashboard. There may be another webinar event in future that is designed to answer your other questions, or of course our technical support staff are available now to answer any questions you have about the software. It's not I don't want to answer it for you. I may not be equipped in my thinking to answer it for you, or the data may not support it, and there could be any number of reasons why it's not suitable to answer that question for you. So again, please keep those questions on topic for us. We are recording today's webinar event. We will have this event released on our website. In fact, I think I did a dashboard event last week that when we go to our homepage here and we go to our support center, we may already have the one that we recorded back in August already out here. Let's check that and see. So if I click here under search here, this page jumps around, trying to drive me crazy, frankly. So we're here to look at this. Give me a second here to load this page. There it is, dashboard. Yeah, so we got our membership dashboard, donations and accounting. This was actually presented. Dashboard accounting preview was recorded on it was produced on August 31st last month. So you've got each one of the modules has their own dashboard, and we're here to talk about accountings today. So let's go ahead and dive in. So here we are at our version 21 accounting main screen. We can access the dashboard in a couple different ways. Here we've got our little dashboard button right here, or you can go across and find it across the top here. Let me get back to my normal drawing tool here. Reports, where is that? Special functions and dashboard right up here. So right here, special functions, and then just below that, we've got the dashboard button right there, okay? So there are a couple different ways, as there are typically, to access the dashboard feature in Church Windows. Basically, the dashboard, folks, is essentially some charts and graphing capability that we've now added to the accounting software, or to the software in its entirety. As I said, there are dashboard functions in both membership and donations as well. Okay, so whichever one you choose, it will open the same exact dashboard screen. So, but folks, what I've done is I've taken this directly from the help files. So the paperwork or the printed material that I'm using for the software today is found right here in our help files. So what I like to do is go into the dashboard. When I click on that and I hit F1 on my keyboard, it opens up and I have to allow the block content. And right here, this accounting dashboard includes lots of wonderful pictures and descriptions of what you can do. But basically, I'm using this as the printed material for today's webinar event. So just FYI, we've got this up to date. So when we open the dashboard, we're presented with 4 different report options in our dashboard. It's basically kind of split thusly. So right here we've got, report number 1, report number 2, we've got report number 3, and report number 4 here, okay? And they each kind of show different information, graphs on different information on the software, okay? So we're going to kind of take a little quick peek at each one of them. But before we do that, right across the top of our accounting dashboard are our reports that are each listed down here at the bottom. So say, for example, you go, okay, I like the dashboard, I like what it's doing, but I don't want to use the account balance report. Well, that's great. So what you can do is you can just simply toggle the accounting weekly balance report off, and then you're left with your other 3 reports, your fund receipts, disbursements, your income expense, and your budget versus actual report. So you can just basically toggle those particular reports on or off at will, depending on which reports you like to use. Okay? So if you go, okay, I only want 2 of my reports, not all 4 of them, you can just basically toggle off the ones you're not wanting, and then you're only going to display the 2 reports that you want. Now, we haven't gotten to printing those, but I'm going to show you everything, so we're going to leave those all on. To the right of the budget versus actual toggle there, we've got our colors. So if you want to change the color for your reports, you can choose any one of them. There's a default, which you can go back to each and every time, but we'll look at that here in a minute. Or we can do the reset to default layout. So if you basically make a selection and you want to reset it, you don't have to close out of the dashboard. You can just do the reset to default layout, and it'll reset it back to the very beginning. Okay? Folks, this is our initial setup for this. So what I mean by that is probably, most likely, as we're hearing from folks, users such as yourself, telling us what's working or not working, this is probably going to evolve. Probably going to add some things to it, I would think, depending on what's working and what's not. And so it's probably going to change. But this is just the basic structure of the dashboard. So let's start and look at our account balance report here on the upper left, right up here. This one right here, account balance, this one. Okay, that's the report we're going to look at first. So then basically it is literally as described. It is an account balance report by week or month for any given account in your chart accounts. So notice here it defaults to our general operating fund, and it is set to monthly. And that literally, as you're seeing it on the screen, is as it looks on the report when you print it. So when we click the print button, okay, it opens up our graph options and says, okay, here's your page header font. It's going to default to landscape, but if you prefer it in portrait, you can certainly change that, but we're going to leave it as landscape and click print. And there is our, basically a graph of our general operating for the year, starting from January of 2018 by month through the end of September. And it shows as low as 0 all the way up to, in this case, over $240,000. It would basically auto adjust accordingly based on whatever your maximum figures were. Okay? And just an FYI, again, as it's displaying on the screen is how you're seeing it, is how it's going to print. So let's see what that looks like weekly. So here, notice it shows all of our weeks from January through September. Again, probably best printed in landscape in this case. It can be pretty busy, but then it changes how those weeks change. But we notice the weeks down at the bottom, and again, going up to that current figure for our general operating fund. Current balance. Okay? But you can literally choose this for any single account. So let's say I want to look at that for my general checking account. Again, weekly or monthly, click print, since my general operating fund does represent my general operating fund, money is stored in my general checking account, it doesn't surprise me too terribly much that this particular fund or this particular report is, the graph is very much paralleling the activity as it occurs in my general fund. All right, so I'm not sure why the preview isn't coming up here, folks. Give me a second here. Let me see what I can do. Let's do reset defaults. There we go. So it is, again, very similarly paralleling my general fund, because my checking account stores the money for my general operating fund. If you have your general checking account stores the money from multiple funds, then probably this report isn't going to be quite as similar, but that's okay. I can clear it out and choose a different account. Let's go down now to our fund receipts disbursements down here in the bottom left, down here. Okay. This literally is similar to our fund activity report. Again, you would enter the, similar to other reports, you would enter the date range that you're wanting it for. So let's say we wanted to look at it for the, say, first 6 months of the year. Click print. Again, similar type print options. And it shows how our activity occurs in each of our funds in a bar graph. So much of our activity has occurred in our general operating fund or our memorial, some in building, some in missions, but little to none in the other funds that we have. Again, receipts and disbursements are represented by the different colors. So let's now take the opportunity to maybe play with our colors here and change something. Okay, so let's change it to Metro. So there we go, we've changed our color. We now click print. It now brings up that report in those desired colors that I've changed. Kind of nice, frankly. Okay, let's do the default. Let's find that here. Where is default? There it is, and there we're back to our default. Or I could do reset default layout. Okay, we're going to reset the default because there's some other stuff I want to show you. Folks have been asking me before through support and through other webinars is, what do you mean by ledgers? Well, in this case, we've got a main memorial fund with sub-funds in our chart of accounts. So if you've got, and basically, folks, again, this just shows us how our income compares to our expenses in each of our funds. So now when I choose my ledger memorial fund balance, it does bring in all of my separate sub-funds with their respective activity. Now, I don't have much activity. I want to change this back to, say, the end of September here, or through the end of the year. Okay, and we're going to click print. So we now notice that we've got some income and some expenses posted to each one of our separate individual memorial sub-funds. So if you've got main funds with sub-funds, main fund with sub-funds of any kind, you can choose that ledger. And then it'll show all of the sub-funds underneath it, much like we have here. A common example of a fund with sub-funds is memorial. That's why we use this in our training data. Okay. Budget versus actual. We're now moving back up to the upper right here. Budget versus actual. This report right here. Okay. So literally this is as described. It compares our budget to our actual for income and expenses. We can only enter budget for income and expense accounts, not for any other types of accounts. So this does allow it, will only compare income to expenses. So it's going to by default create a report for all budgeted items unless I choose to have it for specific budgeted items. But then when I click print next to my income, similar print controls. I'm sorry, folks, I do not understand why this is giving us the problems with these print previews. Reset default layouts, click print. Here it is. Shows all budgeted, say, income items, so it compares our budget versus actual and tells us where we are based on the date range that we've entered. So in this case, through September, how our budgeted income compares to our budgeted actual. A very similar type report for our budget to actual for expenses. Okay? So it tells us the figure. Here's how much actual money we've spent. Here's how much we've budgeted through September 20 or through the end of September for $363,000. So we're considerably under budget for our expenses. Okay? Emily, I'm going to come back to your question here in a minute. I'm sorry, let me get through these here and then I'll come back and answer that question for you. Finally, our income versus our expenses, which again are related to our funds. So down here at the bottom now, we're down into our report in the bottom right corner, right here, the budget, income versus expense report. Again, all this report does is just compare our income to our expenses only in a pie chart format. Okay? So right here, notice we also have an option labeled Labels Outside. So if we don't do that, so if let's say we do this for, it is requiring that we choose a specific fund, income versus expense, and we click Print, it does show, okay, here's where our general operating income compares to our expenses. No budget comparison, just income to expense. Okay? And again, this is year-to-date automatically. So if you want the labels outside, notice here now when we click Print, it actually draws a call out on this and shows, income outside and expenses. This is particularly helpful when you're looking at funds that are pretty busy and have a lot of activity. Okay. I can also do it just for income. Yeah, so this is where labels outside becomes really helpful, is when it's showing just the income. Well, I thought it was going to be better than that, but it's clearly not. Let's see. Yeah, see, now here we go. Here's where labels outside is particularly helpful. If we don't do labels outside on this for, say, our expenses, notice how it kind of gets a little bit more difficult to read. Come on. Sorry, folks. Let's try. Let's get rid of our preview again. There we go. So it kind of gets a little bit convoluted when they're inside, especially the smaller the pies get or the pie pieces get. It kind of gets a little bit awkward. So sometimes that's why we've added this labels outside is, so when we print that report, it draws that line and that call out into each one of those pies and becomes a little easier to read. Okay, so play with this, folks. This is new. Let us know what's working and what's not. You can send us your suggestions to support@churchwindows.com with your customer information. We'll get that into our suggestions database for you. But again, it's already evolved a little bit in our first service release, but play with it. It's something new you can report from a reporting perspective to your folks. So what's our question here? On the first graph, you have where you can pick for weekly or monthly. How do you get that I only show weekly? Is that new update? Is that a new update that will be coming out? Well, I mean, I'm not sure, Emily, I'm understanding your question, but right up here, you just choose the radio button right up here for your report in terms of whether you're wanting the report in a weekly or monthly format. And then, of course, you choose the respective account. Then you choose weekly or monthly and click Print, and that will bring that up in that format. I'm hoping that's what you're asking. But at this point, it is limited to weekly or monthly. I mean, I could certainly see there might be an option for, sensible for quarterly maybe, but yeah, you just use the toggle or the radio button to make your respective selection. It should default to remembering what your last selection was. So if I close out now and go back to my dashboard, SQL's pretty good about that. Yeah, see, it remembered my weekly selection. But you have to preview it in order for it to remember that. I hope that's what your question was. Okay, well, again, folks, we'll have this event on there. If the one out there, I think we're going to replace that with this one at some point here in the next week or 10 days. If you've got questions about this or suggestions, please give us a holler. We're happy to talk about it with you, what works. Hope it's helpful. And I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'll go ahead and end the webinar for everyone. But hope to again to see folks at our future Church Windows webinar event. We hope this one's been helpful for you. If you haven't received your on support and you haven't received your 2118 update, please give us a holler. We're happy to resend that out for you. Thanks again for attending, folks. All right. Take care. Hope everybody has a great day. Bye-bye.